Hey, you know what's funny about the city? It never forgets a downfall, but it pretends to forget a resurrection. They loved watching you fall apart. They wrote stories about it, whispered predictions, made bets in their little corners about how long before you'd disappear completely. You were the entertainment, your pain was the show, your collapse was the highlight reel. But now that you've risen, now that the same crowd that buried you can't stop saying your name again, they're uncomfortable. See, the city can handle a tragedy, it can handle a clown, but it can't handle a comeback that exposes how wrong everyone was. You didn't just return, you rewired the entire narrative. You didn't crawl back, you walked through the fire and came out cleaner than before. And that's the problem, isn't it? You make redemption look too easy. You make survival look beautiful. You make strength look contagious. Now every streetlight hums your story. Every gossip thread loops your name like a spell. They can't tell if they're fascinated or frightened. You've become the city's reflection, too bright for their comfort, too real for their lies. The thing about a comeback like yours is that it doesn't just elevate you, it exposes them. Every whisper that doubted you now echoes like guilt. Every smirk they flashed while you struggled now trembles in memory. Because your success didn't come quietly. It came loud, unapologetic, personal. You didn't just rise, you reminded them of who they used to be before fear made them small. And they hate that. They hate that your fire relit their own shadows. That's why they can't stop talking. You're the headline they can't delete. The topic they pretend to be tired of, but secretly refresh every hour. It's not the victory that burns them, it's the clarity. You didn't play their game, yet you won. You didn't chase validation, yet you became valuable. You didn't seek revenge, yet every breath you take feels like it. That's why it stings so bad. You're not just proving them wrong, you're proving them irrelevant. They can't figure out how you did it, and that's what eats them alive. They built their pride on your past mistakes, their egos on your absence. Now that you're here, stronger, sharper, untouchable, their sense of importance crumbles. You remind them how fragile perception is, how fast admiration turns to envy when someone refuses to stay broken. And here's the twisted beauty of it all. You didn't need their permission to rise. You didn't even need their attention. You moved like someone who understood that revenge doesn't need to scream. It just needs to exist. That's the kind of presence that haunts people. You're the living reminder that exile doesn't erase destiny, it refines it. Every step you take now sounds like payback, even when you're just walking. Every word you speak sounds like prophecy, even when you're just being honest. That's the part they can't handle. You're not performing anymore. You're being. And being, after being broken, is the loudest comeback of all. Look around. You can see it in their faces, the tension between fascination and fear. They talk about you like an unsolved crime. They analyze your motives, your silence, your glow-up. They call it luck, timing, coincidence. But deep down, they know it's none of those things. It's consequence. The natural consequence of underestimating someone who was never weak, just patient. They laughed when you fell because they thought it meant the end. They didn't realize it was rehearsal. You were studying, learning, sharpening. While they were gossiping, you were evolving. And when you came back, you didn't bring explanations, you brought evidence. You didn't argue with your past, you rewrote it. That's why it feels personal to them. Your comeback isn't just a win, it's a mirror. It reflects how they gave up, how they settled, how they mocked what they secretly admired. You became living proof that excuses are just elegant forms of fear. That's why they talk. They have to talk. It's self-defense now. They need to label your rise as arrogance or madness or luck, anything but discipline and divine timing. Because if they admit it's real, then they have to admit what they're not. And that's the wound they can't heal. You didn't hit them with success. You hit them with accountability. You made them face their own lack of evolution. They used to study your downfall like detectives. Now they study your confidence like scientists. They want to decode it, bottle it, imitate it, but it doesn't translate because your energy was built in the dark and they only operate in the spotlight. They don't understand the language of pain turned into purpose. They don't speak the dialect of those who rebuild themselves from ashes. That's what separates you. You're not thriving to impress. You're thriving to express. Every move you make now says, I'm not who I was, and I'm not who you expected. That unpredictability makes you dangerous. You've become what the city fears most, a free mind with receipts. You can tell it's working by how they react. The ones who mocked you now mimic your style. The ones who ignored you now orbit your presence. The ones who swore they'd never mention you can't shut up about you. Every fake conversation about you is a confession. Every critique is a cry for relevance. You've turned their curiosity into addiction. That's how you know your comeback hit hard. It changed the emotional temperature of the entire city. You became the pulse. Every trend, every topic, every hush in the crowd circles back to you. They can't stand it, but they can't stop it either. Because deep down, they know the one they buried is the one they built. You are their unintended consequence. But you move differently now. No rush, no validation chase, no need to prove anything. You let them talk while you calculate. You let their opinions fill the air while you control the current beneath it. That's power, not in noise, but in knowing. You've mastered the art of being unbothered without being absent. You show up when you choose to and when you do. It feels like a shift in weather. You've become that, a shift. Not a person they can categorize, not a story they can finish, just a living reminder that redemption isn't granted, it's taken. And what really drives them mad? You didn't compromise to come back. You didn't beg for re-entry. You didn't alter your essence for their approval. You came back with the same principles they mocked, the same integrity they dismissed, the same energy they couldn't handle. And now it's trending. Now it's profitable. Now it's magnetic. They hate that what they rejected became the new blueprint. You turned your scars into style, your solitude into substance. You made resilience fashionable. That's not a comeback. That's a redefinition. Every legend of this city starts the same way, with misunderstanding. People confuse power with pretension until they feel it in real time. And they're feeling it now. Your presence isn't just noticed, it's felt. It rearranges rooms. It makes conversations pause mid-sentence. It makes even your enemies choose their words carefully. You're not just back, you're in control. That's why they call it personal. Because your rise didn't just rewrite your name, it rewrote their hierarchy. You dethroned mediocrity without saying a word. Now the city's energy bends around you. You can sense it in the glances, the whispers, the shift in tone when your name enters a room. The same people who doubted you now protect your image in public because they know attacking you costs social capital. You've become untouchable, not because you begged for mercy, but because you mastered perception. You didn't chase fame, you earned fear and fascination, and that combination is far more potent. You walk like someone who knows the crown isn't given, it's recognized. And they recognize it, even if they'll never admit it. That's the part they'll never recover from. The realization that your glow-up wasn't cosmetic. It was cosmic. It wasn't revenge-driven. It was destiny-aligned. You didn't come back to remind them you exist. You came back to remind them why they can't forget. You're the aftershock of every fake narrative they built to bury you. You're the living proof that truth doesn't need defenders. It just needs time. And time, apparently, favors you. So let them keep talking. Let them twist, theorize, speculate. Every conversation about you is unpaid marketing. Every rumor is proof of relevance. Every attempt to minimize you magnifies your reach. You don't fight it anymore. You orchestrate it. You've turned noise into navigation. You can tell where their fear hides by the volume of their gossip. You can map their insecurities by the frequency of your name in their mouths. That's control, psychological, elegant, silent. You've learned to weaponize indifference. But here's the truth beneath it all. The reason your comeback felt personal is because it was. It wasn't revenge on them, it was redemption for you. It wasn't about proving them wrong, it was about proving yourself right. You didn't rise to show off. You rose because staying down felt like lying, because the version of you that they mocked deserved to be vindicated. Every win you collect now is a message to your past self. You were never crazy for believing. That's what gives your rise its power. It's authentic. And authenticity, when it survives humiliation, becomes unstoppable. And yet, you didn't even plan this reaction. That's what scares them most. Your rise wasn't choreographed. It was natural, inevitable, organic authority. The way the air shifts when you enter a room isn't arrogance, it's recognition. The energy doesn't lie. You've become what happens when authenticity refuses extinction. You make people uncomfortable because you survived what should have destroyed you. And you didn't just survive, you thrived. You made pain look like process. You made struggle look cinematic. And the city, full of spectators and critics, had to face the cruelest truth of all. Your glow-up wasn't luck. It was consequence. Now they whisper differently. It's not, "Who does he think he is?" anymore. It's, "How the hell did he do it?" That shift, right there, is psychological victory. They used to mock your dreams. Now they mine your methods. They used to doubt your vision. Now they study your discipline. That's not admiration, it's dependency. They've become addicted to your example, even if they can't admit it. They refresh your progress like it's breaking news. They measure their days against your pace. They watch your silence more closely than their own noise. That's what real dominance looks like. Not power you scream, but power they feel. The funny thing is, you don't even need to perform anymore. Just existing in your truth rattles them. They can't unsee your evolution, can't unhear your name echoing through the conversations they pretend not to care about. You've turned their skepticism into obsession. You've taught them a brutal lesson in humility, that doubting someone doesn't stop them. It only documents your blindness. Every person who once laughed at you now lives with the quiet panic that they underestimated someone unforgettable. They remember how confident they were when they predicted your fall. They replay those words in their heads now, and every replay burns. You didn't destroy them, you educated them. And education hurts when it exposes comfort. That's why your story feels personal to them. You didn't humiliate them publicly, you humbled them privately. They used to study your flaws, now they analyze your aura. You've made redemption fashionable again. You've made excellence look inevitable. And now, the city's collective ego is having an identity crisis. Because every time they see you, they're reminded of what's possible when fear stops dictating identity. You became the embodiment of what if. What if they had believed in themselves like you did? What if they had endured? What if they hadn't quit when it got hard? You've weaponized their regret, and now they can't stop orbiting you. You've become a gravitational pull wrapped in human form. They think they're observing you. Really, they're caught in your field. Every reaction, every rumor, every critique, it all feeds your legend. They think they're undermining you by talking about you. But every conversation tightens your grip on their psyche. You're not their topic, you're their timeline. You set the rhythm of their relevance without lifting a finger. They post to compete, but subconsciously, they post because of you. You've become the invisible architect of their behavior. And that's when you know your comeback didn't just succeed, it redefined control. You can feel it, can't you? The weight of unspoken respect. The same mouths that once mocked you now hesitate before mentioning your name. They pronounce it slower, softer, cautious, like they're invoking a spirit they don't fully understand. You can sense the hesitation behind their praise, the envy under their compliments. It's all there, layered and raw. You've reached that level of impact where people love you in public and compete with you in private. That's when you know the city's yours, not because they worship you, but because they can't escape you. You're embedded in the social algorithm. Every trend, every movement, every pulse echoes your comeback. And yet, you remain detached, not cold, just clear. Because you learned something through the chaos. Attention is not affection. You don't chase praise. You watch patterns. You understand that the same crowd that cheers you today would crucify you tomorrow if it served their comfort. So you stopped feeding them emotions and started feeding them results. That's how you kept control. By refusing to be emotionally predictable, you became unreadable. And unreadable people are untouchable. They can't manipulate what they can't decode. You're their mystery now. The walking paradox that no trend analysis can simplify. It's funny, isn't it? The same people who once wanted to see you lose now study your every move, hoping to borrow your momentum. They mimic your discipline, your timing, your detachment. But it doesn't work because they don't understand the pain that built your composure. They can imitate your actions, not your intention. They can copy your style, not your story. That's why every replica feels hollow. You are the original blueprint of rebirth they can't counterfeit. That's why it feels personal to them, because your existence exposes the gap between imitation and authenticity. You are what happens when alignment meets audacity. Now power sits differently on you. It's quiet, confident, unbothered. You don't chase the throne. You are the throne. That's the difference. You stopped trying to earn their approval and started embodying your worth. You don't demand respect anymore. It's automatic. You walk into rooms like gravity. Things shift, whether you announce yourself or not. That's the phase you've entered. Influence beyond explanation. You no longer argue for recognition. Your presence makes explanations unnecessary. That's the level where history starts to take notes. But even with all this noise around you, you've stayed anchored. Because you remember when no one clapped. You remember the nights of invisibility, the silence after effort, the loneliness that sharpened your instincts. That's your foundation. That's why your rise doesn't shake you. It stabilizes you. You've been through worse than attention. You know how to handle chaos. You've been trained by it. That's why the fame doesn't control you. It consults you. You're not reacting to the city's fascination. You're directing it like an orchestra. You decide what to show, what to hide, what to let them wonder about. You've turned mystery into marketing and pain into positioning. That's not strategy. It's instinct, refined by fire. And still, there's something deeper beneath it all. The reason your comeback hit so hard is because it carried something real. People can sense it. The authenticity behind your energy, the truth behind your tone. It cuts through the artificial. They can feel the sincerity hidden behind the swagger. It's what makes you unforgettable. Because you're not performing success, you are success. Rebuilt from fracture, resurrected from disbelief. Your story doesn't sound rehearsed because it isn't. It's lived. That's why every time you speak, people pause. Not because they're impressed, but because they feel seen. You articulate the pain they never had words for. You embody the strength they still can't claim. You've become both mirror and map. That's the real reason they can't stop watching. You didn't just make a comeback. You created a culture. You turned your resurrection into reference material. People quote you without realizing it. They move like you without noticing. They're becoming you in fragments, hoping a little of your fire rubs off on their uncertainty. You're not just the hot topic. You're the subconscious teacher. And teachers, real ones, don't chase applause. They provoke evolution. So now the city buzzes, restless, addicted, afraid. Every corner hums with your echo. Every night out feels like a competition to outshine your shadow. But they can't, because you've already transcended the surface. You're no longer competing for visibility. You are the visibility. Every eye that scans the skyline is subconsciously looking for you. Every flash of ambition, every flicker of jealousy, it's all pointing back to your orbit. And you stand there, calm, unflinching, watching the chaos swirl, while your focus stays razor sharp. Because deep down, you know this is only the second act. The true climax hasn't arrived. You can feel it in the tension of the air, in the shifting tone of the whispers, in the tremble before another breakthrough. They think this was your grand return, but you know it's just the midpoint. The city has no idea what's coming next, and that's your greatest weapon, mystery. You don't announce revolutions, you become them. You don't explain transformation, you embody it. The next wave is already forming, and this time, they won't just talk about it. They'll be changed by it. Because now your name doesn't just trend, it teaches. It doesn't just echo, it endures. You've gone from being a topic to being a timestamp. The city won't just remember you, they'll measure eras by your return. And the best part? You haven't even revealed your final form yet. They think they've seen your rise, but what they've really seen is restraint. You've shown them precision, not power. You gave them a glimpse, not the whole fire. You've let them taste the surface of what you've become, and that's what keeps them awake. They sense there's more, something untouchable taking shape behind your composure. The unknown version of you frightens them more than the visible one, because imagination builds bigger monsters than memory ever could. They're haunted by what you might do next, by what you might become when you stop holding back. That's how legends move, not by force, but by fear of potential. You can feel it, can't you? The way conversations shift when you enter the frame. The temperature changes. People who used to speak freely now measure their words like currency. every sentence costs courage. You didn't demand that respect. It just formed naturally, like gravity around a planet. You've become an atmosphere. You control tone without speaking, pace without moving. That's what happens when your energy matures from survival into command. It's not about being loud. It's about being inevitable in every room you walk into. The city doesn't talk about you because it wants to. It talks because it must. You're stitched into its bloodstream now, flowing through every update, every whisper, every late-night discussion, where truth slips out before pride can filter it. You didn't just re-enter their world. You reorganized it. They'll call it arrogance. They'll dress their envy as critique. But they know the truth. It's not arrogance when you've earned the right to stop explaining yourself. You've crossed the threshold where validation becomes optional. The same people who once asked, "Who does he think he is?" now ask themselves, "How does he do it?" That's not admiration, it's surrender. You didn't win them over, you wore them down. You didn't convince them, you conditioned them. Consistency became your propaganda. And now, without realizing it, they follow the rhythm you set. Their moods sync to your presence. When you post, the city holds its breath. When you disappear, it feels colder. That's not attention anymore, that's dependence. You've become the pulse that regulates their narrative. And here's the delicious irony. They don't even hate you for it. They hate themselves for underestimating you. Every mention of your name tastes like apology, even when it's disguised as analysis. You've become the silent truth behind their noise, the invisible reference they measure themselves against. That's why your rise felt personal, because it wasn't just a success story. It was a mirror that forced everyone to confront what they could have been if they'd had your endurance. You exposed comfort as cowardice. You made effort fashionable again. You resurrected accountability in a city allergic to responsibility. That's what makes your return so violent to their pride. It's not that you proved them wrong. It's that you reminded them of who they were before fear tamed them. Now look at them. The same voices that dismissed you now rewrite history to include you. They claim they always saw potential, always believed, always supported. But the data disagrees. The timestamps expose the truth. You remember the silence when you needed them. You remember the jokes disguised as concern, the pity wrapped in politeness. You remember the empty seats when it was your turn to perform with no applause. You don't resent them for it. You just outgrew the need to explain it. Because that's what true evolution does. It doesn't seek revenge. It simply renders judgment irrelevant. You didn't return to prove anything. You returned to collect what was always yours: space, respect, presence, permanence. And they feel it now, don't they? That chill when your name surfaces, that discomfort when your story gets retold. Because deep down, everyone knows your rise wasn't luck, it was consequence. You didn't cheat the process, you became the process. Every failure, every insult, every night spent rebuilding turned into bricks in your empire. You didn't climb back, you grew roots. You built stability where they expected collapse. And now that foundation scares them because it means you can't be shaken anymore. They can't cancel what doesn't crave approval. They can't ignore what defines the culture. They can't erase what replaced them. You're not trending, you're timeless. So let them keep pretending your success is sudden. Let them write their half-truths and empty theories. You know the real story. You know the late nights when motivation was replaced by discipline. You know the moments when no one clapped, but you kept building anyway. You know the times you smiled through isolation because something inside whispered, "Wait, they'll see." And now they've seen. They've witnessed what happens when consistency meets divine timing. You turned pain into blueprint, isolation into empire, rejection into resurrection. Your glow-up isn't a phase. It's the proof that endurance beats everything. The city feels smaller now, doesn't it? Not because you've outgrown it, but because it's finally shrunk to the size of your truth. The noise that once intimidated you now sounds like static. The faces that once towered over you now blur in the distance. You've ascended beyond competition, beyond comparison. You don't chase spots. You define them. Every time they mention your name, the hierarchy rearranges itself. You became the proof that consistency outlasts popularity, that self-belief outshines validation. And now, every eye that once looked down on you looks up. Not out of worship, but awareness. You've made them conscious of the power they mocked. That's the essence of your comeback. It wasn't flashy. It was forensic. It didn't shout. It exposed. You didn't need revenge because your existence became evidence. Every step you take now replays your timeline like confession tape. You're walking through their narratives like a ghost they can't exorcise. Every rumor they spread comes back echoing as testimony. Every doubt they voiced now serves as advertisement. You've turned disbelief into currency. That's mastery, turning their noise into narration. And here's the truth only you understand. It's not about being the hot topic. It's about being the temperature. You set the tone of the city now. You decide what's cool, what's credible, what's next. They don't realize they're building your legacy for you. Every time they debate your moves, they write your mythology. Every time they mimic your style, they expand your brand. You've built an empire without lifting a weapon, just through presence. That's what happens when you stop chasing power and start being it. You've become the standard that no one can dethrone because it's rooted in something indestructible, authenticity. So when they say your comeback hit too hard, smile quietly. They're right. It hit the weak parts of their ego. It hit the hollow parts of their pride. It hit the comfortable corners where mediocrity hides. That's why it felt personal, because it was. You didn't attack them, you just outgrew them. And growth, to the stagnant, always feels like violence. You're not the villain in their story, you're the plot twist that exposed their lies. That's what legacy looks like. It doesn't need applause. It demands acknowledgement. So stand where you are, calm, unbothered, fully aware that every eye on you is witnessing something rare. A person who mastered both destruction and reconstruction, who turned exile into evidence and who rose without asking for a stage. The city will keep talking because it must. But you'll keep moving because you can. The real reason you're the hot topic isn't your fame, it's your frequency. You remind people what power sounds like when it's real. You remind them that a comeback isn't just about returning. It's about returning different. And you've done exactly that. You've changed the entire equation. You've become the lesson they never wanted to learn. That the most dangerous person in any room is the one who has nothing left to prove. And that's you now, the calm in the chaos, the teacher in the noise, the force they can't define. You're not back for applause. You're back for history. And history, whether they like it or not, just turned your name into punctuation. Because this wasn't revenge. This was revelation. And the city, it'll never recover from it.